welcome back to my channel. If you're new, welcome. If you have seen my channel before, you know that I usually cover true crime stories from around the world, but I don't have one of those videos for you today, but I do have a presentation that I worked on for school. And I know that sounds a little bit boring, but it's actually relevant to this channel. So, as some of you know, I'm in school, I'm almost done, I'm getting a master's degree in data science, and I'm just finishing this class called Data Visualization. And my data visualization final project is actually about journalists and media workers who have been killed around the world. And so basically, this presentation is a bunch of visualizations I made in Tableau talking about how journalist and media worker deaths have changed from the years 1992 to 2016 versus the last 5 years, which are 2017 to 2022. And I conclude with the top 5 most dangerous places for journalists in the world in the last 5 years at the state or province level, not just at the country level. So I'm not really sure if people who watch my channel are really interested in this. Maybe if you've never seen my channel before and you're just interested in this topic of journalist deaths around the world, you might be interested in it. I thought I would post it anyway, just so people would have the information. I did work really hard on it. So without further ado, here's my presentation. I will be back with a normal video as soon as I can. I can't tell you exactly when, but I can tell you I will be done with school in less than 2 months, and then I will have so much more time to make videos, which I am so excited about. Thank you for watching in advance, and I'll see you next time. Hello. My name is Jessica, and today I'd like to share with you a presentation about a data analysis project I did for my data visualization class. It's about journalists and media workers around the world who have been killed in the last 30 years. I'm sure that we can all agree that journalists and media workers have some of the most important jobs on Earth. They bring us information that we would otherwise never get, and they sometimes risk their lives to do so right from the front lines. As of today, October 22nd, 2022, 2,176 journalists and media workers have been killed since 1992. As we go through this presentation, please keep in mind that each one of these people was an individual person with their own hopes and dreams and goals and family and friends. What I wanted to find out in this project was statistically what has changed in the last 5 years in terms of journalist and media worker deaths versus the previous 25 years. Who were the journalists being killed? What did they cover? And how did they die? And where? I did some data analysis via Tableau and made some visuals to share what I found. First, there will be an overview of where exactly these journalists have been killed, and then we will compare both the death types and the coverage types. Then we're going to get into more specifics about where exactly these journalists were killed in the top 5 countries at the state, province, or governorate level. The end date for the data used here is October 3rd, 2022, and for the purposes of this particular study, I put 3 countries in their own separate region each. And those 3 countries are Mexico, Russia, and Turkey, and that's because they don't quite fit in well with the regions that they're actually technically a part of. For example, Mexico being part of North America, lumped in with the United States and Canada, Russia being part of Europe or Asia, and the same with Turkey. It just doesn't quite make sense, so I counted them separately. The source of the data I used for this project is from the Committee to Protect Journalists. They have been recording every journalist and media death since 1992. I actually added data to their data on my own. I added the region and state, province, or governorate, because most of that data was missing from theirs. This is a line graph of the number of journalists and media workers who have been killed worldwide by year. So this is just the total number, and as you can see, since 1992, the year with the lowest number of journalist and media worker deaths was actually 1996, with only 34. 1997, 98, and 2002 were also very close, with 35 or 36 deaths. Deaths peaked in 2007 with 113 killed. Between 2018 and 2021, deaths were declining, but they just started rising again this year in 2022. So the CPJ data identifies 3 different types of deaths, which are murder, dangerous assignment, and crossfire. They also have cases where they're not sure what happened, and those are counted as NA or unknown. So on the left, we have a pie chart representing 1992 to 2016, and on the right, we have the same information about the distribution of types of deaths from 2017 to 2022. And the main thing I want to point out on this slide is that the number of unknown deaths has increased, murders have decreased, and deaths due to dangerous assignment have increased. So in terms of coverage type, which is what are these journalists and media workers who've been killed actually covering? Like, is it business or politics or crime? There are a lot of those categories because a lot of them are combinations. Because you have a lot of journalists who are covering multiple categories. So what I did on this slide was I took the top 5 coverage type categories for the 25 years previous and then the last 5 years, just to show the differences between what those journalists were covering. The thing I want you to take away from this slide is that the share of politics being covered by these journalists who've been killed has gone up and war has gone down. This slide is about the differences between regions, and these are just percentages of where the deaths have happened in the previous 25 years prior to 2017 and then the last 5 years. The main things I want you to notice here are that there's been a huge improvement in the Middle East, which includes Iraq, but the share of deaths happening in Central Asia has gone up over 2 times, and Mexico has gone up over 3 times. So in other words, in 1992 to 2016, the share of journalist deaths in Mexico was about 5%, but in the last 5 years, it's been almost 17%. This is a world map of total journalist deaths between 1992 and 2016, and you can see that the hotspots here are Iraq, followed by the Philippines, Mexico, Pakistan right here, and Colombia right here. This is the same world map, but with the totals from 2017 to 2022. The good news in this map is that there have been a lot of improvements. So Sierra Leone went from 17 deaths to 0, and Algeria went from 60 to 0, and both of them actually had civil wars end in 2002, which I'm sure helped. You have Russia, who went from 79 down to 3, and Iraq, which went from 268 down to 15. However, you can see that the current hotspots for journalists and media worker deaths are Mexico, Afghanistan, Syria, India, and the Philippines. This is a map of just murders only from 2017 to 2022. And basically on this map, you can see that the hotspots for murders by far are Afghanistan and again Mexico. This map is similar to the last one, but instead of murders, it's for dangerous assignment deaths. And you can see that the hotspots here are, again, Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, and Ukraine. And again, this map is very similar, covering the last 5 years, but the deaths by crossfire. And you can see that by far the hotspot for crossfire journalist and media worker deaths is absolutely Syria. This slide just shows the top 5 most dangerous countries overall. So from 1992 to 2016, they were Iraq, the Philippines, Syria, Mexico, and Pakistan. But from 2017 to 2022, they were Mexico, Afghanistan, Syria, India, and the Philippines. Mexico in particular has gotten much more dangerous. But that information wasn't enough for me. So it was already pretty well known that Mexico had gotten much more dangerous for journalists lately. But I wanted to know exactly where in each of these top 5 countries these deaths were happening. On the next few slides, I'm going to be showing you the differences between the deaths per province or state from 1992 to 2016 versus 2017 to 2022. And I realize it's not fair to compare 25 years with 5 years, but what I want to show you on these maps is how the hotspots have changed. So the first thing I want you to notice on this map, this is a map of the provinces of the Philippines. And the absolute hotspot for the 25 years previous to the last 5 years was Maguindanao del Norte, and that's because there was a horrible massacre of journalists that occurred there in 2009. The other thing I want you to notice is that it's not named on this map, but this province just south of Negros Occidental is Negros Oriental, and it has no deaths during this period. Now here's a map of the last 5 years, 2017 to 2022. And what I want you to see here is that Negros Oriental, which previously had no deaths, has now had 4. So there is definitely something going on in that province, and by the way, all 4 of them were radio broadcasters. This is a map of all the states in India and how many journalists were killed there in the 25 years prior to the last 5 years. And the thing I want you to notice on this map, first of all, these deaths are all over India, and part of that is just because it was a 25-year period. But Kashmir up here has got 10 deaths, and Uttar Pradesh has 8. Now here's the same map, again from 2017 to 2022, and remember Uttar Pradesh had 8 in the previous 25 years, and now it's got 7 just in the last 5. So clearly things have gotten a lot worse there, and that might have something to do with their current chief minister, Yogi Adityanath. On the other hand, Kashmir has gotten safer with just 1 death in the last 5 years. Here is a map of Syria's governorates with how many journalists and media workers were killed in 1992 to 2016. Notice that the hotspots here are Damascus, right here, and Aleppo. And Idlib over here only has 8 deaths. Compare that with the last 5 years, and Damascus and Aleppo have improved a lot, which is great. But the new hotspot is Idlib, with 7 deaths, when remember, in the 25 years previous to this period, it only had 8. So here's a map of Afghanistan's provinces and the number of journalists and media workers killed there in the 25 years prior to the last 5 years. And what I want you to notice here is that Kabul only has 6 deaths from 1992 to 2016. Compare that with the last 5 years, and suddenly Kabul has 23 journalist deaths in the last 5 years, whereas they only had 6 in the previous 25. So I'm not sure if these are mostly driven by the Taliban or ISIS-K or what exactly, but Kabul has gotten much, much more dangerous. So finally we have Mexico. So here are all the states in Mexico, and if you notice, the hotspots for journalist deaths in the 25 years prior to the last 5 years are Veracruz, Guerrero, and Oaxaca. And I also want you to notice the numbers for Chihuahua and Sonora right here. So Sonora has 2 and Chihuahua has 9. Compare that with the last 5 years, and you can see that Veracruz and Guerrero are still hotspots. And now you've got Sonora, which has got 6. It had 2 before. Chihuahua has improved, but again, with the 25 versus 5 years, it's hard to say that that's an improvement. I suppose it hasn't gotten a lot worse, at least. And then I forgot to mention on the last side, down here in Quintana Roo, you only had 1 journalist death in the previous 25 years, and now there are 4, just in 5 years. In conclusion, here are the top 5 most dangerous places for journalists as of 2017 to 2022 at the state or province level. And those are Kabul, Afghanistan, by far, with 23 deaths. Veracruz, Mexico, with 11. And then having 7 each, Uttar Pradesh, India, Idlib, Syria, and Guerrero, Mexico. Here's my reference slide. My only reference is the CPJ data. If you would like to look at their data, they have it on their website. You can just Google the Committee to Protect Journalists. A big thank you to them for compiling this data and keeping track of these important records. And by the way, they also have data about missing and imprisoned journalists that I didn't get to use. Thank you so much for watching this presentation. I really appreciate it, and I will see you next time.